Welcome back, everybody. These are the best films of 1971. Let's check out all the Oscar winners, the horror, the comedy, the crime, the romance, the thrillers, the sci-fis. We got it all. These are the best films of 1971. Join me. Money, buddy comedy caper featuring Warren Beatty and Goldie Hawn. Bank security expert Joe Collins and call girl Donnie Devine plot to rob 3 safety deposit boxes containing $1.5 million in cash. A Safe Place, Tuesday Weld, Orson Welles, and Jack Nicholson. A strange young woman lives in a fantasy world where she can never grow up. A Safe Place. Next up we have is A Tattered Web. Lloyd Bridges and Frank Converse. A detective accidentally kills his son-in-law's floozy and then tries to cover up his actions. Crime, drama, and mystery. Next up we have is the Oscar hit A Clockwork Orange. Malcolm McDowell, dark comedy, dystopian, sci-fi. Alex DeLarge and his droogs barbarized in a decaying near future. Gangster, A Clockwork Orange, one for the ages. A New Leaf, dark comedy, Walter Matthau, Elaine May. Henry Graham lives the life of a playboy when his lawyer tells him that his lifestyle has consumed all his funds. A New Leaf. The Abominable, Dr. Phibbs. Doctor, scientist, organist, and biblical scholar Anton Phibbs seeks revenge on the 9 doctors he considers responsible for the death of his wife. Vincent Price. Angels Hard as They Come. Scott Glenn. Sex, violence, and bikers on an action-filled ride in this film-produced comedy written by Jonathan Demme. A Safe Place. A strange young woman lives in a fantasy world where she can never grow up. This features Tuesday Weld, Orson Welles, and Jack Nicholson. This is another movie poster, just so you know. Bananas. Woody Allen and Louise Nazer. When a bumbling New Yorker is dumped by his activist girlfriend, he travels to a tiny Latin American nation and becomes involved in its latest rebellion. Satire, slapstick, and comedy. Bedknobs and Broomsticks. Angela Lansbury and Roddy McDowall. An apprentice witch, 3 kids, and a cynical magician search for the missing component to a magic spell. Bedknobs and Broomsticks. The Beguiled. While recuperating in a Confederate girl boarding school, a Union soldier causes his way into each of a lonely woman's heart. Clint Eastwood and Geraldine Page. The Big Dollhouse. Roberta Collins and Pam Grier. Beautiful female prisoners are abused in a Philippine prison until 5 of them plot an escape. The Big Dollhouse. Next up we have is Big Jake, John Wayne, and Richard Boone. In 1909, when John Fane's gang kidnaps Jacob McCandless's grandson and holds him for ransom, Big Jake sets out to rescue the boy. Billy Jack, awesome film, Tom Laughlin. Ex-Green Beret Hapkido expert saves wild horses from being slaughtered for dog food. Billy Jack, action and drama. Will to Die, Rodolfo Acosta. In order to qualify to inherit the family fortune, the 4 heirs, their in-laws, and the household servants must spend the night in the family estate. Horror, mystery, and thriller. Next up we have the classic Blood and Lace. Slasher, horror, drama, and thriller. After her prostitute mother is murdered, a teenage girl is sent to a remote orphanage run by a mysterious woman and her handyman. Blood and Lace. Blood from the Mummy's Tomb. An archaeological expedition brings back to London the coffin of an Egyptian queen known for her magical powers. Supernatural horror and thriller. Next thing we have is Brother John. Sidney Poitier and Will Greer. A man who returns for his hometown for a funeral may have a much larger purpose in life than those around him can see. Brother John. Drama and sci-fi. Bunny O'Hare, comedy. Bunny is a penniless widow who blackmails a robber into teaching her the trade. Soon their pair starts a successful crime spree, and the cops aren't running, turning a blind eye. Jack Cassidy and Ernest Borgnine. Carnal Knowledge, chronicling the lifelong sexual development of two men who meet and become friends in college. Jack Nicholson and Candice Bergen. Carnal Knowledge. Catch Me a Spy. Andre, a smuggler of microfilmed Russian manuscripts, uses the luggage of unsuspecting travelers to transport the contraband out of the country. Kirk Douglas, Marlene Jobert. Catch Me a Spy. Cisco Pike. A down-on-his-luck former drug dealer is forced by a corrupt LAPD policeman to sell hundreds of kilos of confiscated marijuana in one weekend. Chris Christopherson and Karen Black. And Gene Hackman. Congratulations, it's a boy. Bill Bixby and Diane Baxter. A bachelor's life is interrupted by the appearance of a teenager who claims to be his son. Congratulations, it's a boy. Diamonds Are Forever. Sean Connery and Jill St. John. A diamond smuggling investigation leads James Bond to Las Vegas, where he uncovers an evil plot involving a rich business tycoon. Diamonds Are Forever. Dirty Harry, Clint Eastwood. When a man calling himself the Scorpio Killer menaces San Francisco, a tough-as-nails police inspector, Dirty Harry Callahan, is assigned to track down the crazed psychopath. Doctors' Wives. The dysfunctional marriages of several unhappy rich doctors who work at a private clinic and their neglected wives who deal with their own unhappiness. Gene Hackman, Richard Crenna, and Diane Cannon. Dracula vs. Frankenstein. Dracula conspires with a mad doctor to resurrect the Frankenstein monster. Horror and sci-fi. The kings of horror battle to the death. Duel. Psychological thriller. Dennis Weaver. A business commuter is pursued and terrorized by the malevolent driver of a massive tractor trailer. Duel. Born to Win. George Siegel and Paula Prentice and Karen Black. A smart-mouthed junkie and loser known as JJ spends his days looking for just one more fix. Born to Win. Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Roddy McDowall. The world is shocked by the appearance of 3 talking chimpanzees who arrived mysteriously in a U.S. spacecraft. Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Return of Sabata. Lee Van Cleef. Spaghetti Western. The citizens of Hobsnobville hire Sabata to rid them of McClintock Clan. Spaghetti Western, drama, and western. Return of Sabata. Evel Knievel. Biography of the famed motorcycle daredevil, much of which was filmed in his hometown of Butte, Montana. George Hamilton as Evel Knievel. Great film, great legend. Fiddler on the Roof. Classical musical. Topol Tever. In pre-revolutionary Russia, a Jewish peasant with traditional values contends with marrying off 3 of his daughters. Fiddler on the Roof. Making It. Phil, a 17-year-old cocky high school student, thinks nothing of using the people around him to satisfy his self-centered needs until someone in his life gets pregnant. Making It. Fool's Parade. In 1935, after 40 years in a West Virginia prison, 3 released convicts which opened to a legitimate business using the $25,000 earned in prison. James Stewart, George Kennedy, and Ann Baxter. Fool's Parade. Get Carter. Michael Caine, Ian Hendry. When his brother dies under mysterious circumstances in a car accident, London gangster Jack Carter travels to Newcastle to investigate. Duck, You Sucker. Rod Steiger and James Coburn. A low-life bandit and an IRA explosives expert rebel against the government and become heroes of the Mexican Revolution. Spaghetti Western and tragedy. Godzilla vs. Hedorah. A toxic, ever-evolving alien life form from the dark, gaseous nebula arrives to consume rampant pollution. Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Hanny Calder. Raquel Welch and Robert Culp and Ernest Borgnine. After she is raped by the trio of outlaw brothers who murdered her husband, a frontierswoman hires a bounty hunter, Hanny Calder. Happy birthday, Wanda June, Rod Steiger, and Susan York. A family reacts to the return of the patriarch who abandoned them 7 years prior. Happy birthday, Wanda June. Next up we have is The Hospital. George C. Scott, Diana Rigg. A hospital's chief of staff struggles to find meaning in his life during a spate of staff deaths. The Hospital, dark comedy. Adios, Sabata. Sabata helps a band of Mexican revolutionaries steal a wagon load of gold from the occupying Austrian forces of Emperor Maximilian I. Yul Brynner and Dean Reed. Adios, Sabata. Jennifer on My Mind. Michael Brandon. Two wealthy independent young people meet in Venice and fall in love, but their affair takes a tragic turn as the young woman becomes hooked on heroin. Johnny Got His Gun. Timothy Bottoms. During World War I, a patriotic young American is rendered blind, deaf, and limbless. Johnny Got His Gun. Featuring Donald Sutherland. How to Frame a Fig. Don Knotts, Joe Flynn, and Edward Andrews. Don Knotts is Hollis Fig, the dumbest bookkeeper in town. Comedy. How to Frame a Fig. Clute. Jane Fonda, Donald Sutherland, and Roy Scheider. A small-town detective searching for a missing man has only one lead: a connection with a New York prostitute, a hooker, a slut. Clute. Lady Liberty. Sophia Loren. United States Customs in New York. JFK Airport won't allow her to enter the country with a baked ham. Lady Liberty, featuring Sophia Loren. Comedy. Le Mans. Steve McQueen. Two car racing champions, an American and a German, face off on the world's hardest endurance course, Le Mans in France. Motorsport, action, and adventure. Daughters of Kindness. Delphine Seyrig and John Carlin. While passing through a vacation resort, a newlywed couple encounters a mysterious, strikingly beautiful countess and her aide. Daughters of Darkness. Misterio en las Bermudas. Santo and Blue Demon. The Mexican wrestlers. Beautiful Sylvia and Sandra disappear mysteriously, only to be found by Santo and Blue Demon. Great movie, action-packed. Maybe I'll Come Home in the Spring. Sally Field, Eleanor Parker. After finding out that the hippie lifestyle isn't glamorous as the media makes it look, Danny comes home to find disapproval and judgment at every turn. Maybe I'll Come Home in the Spring. The $1 Million Duck. Dean Jones, Sandy Duncan, and Joe Flynn. Professor Dooley takes home a duck from his research laboratory as a pet for his son, but soon finds out that it lays golden eggs. The Millionaire Duck. Mooch. Vincent Price and James Darren. A dog named Mooch comes to Hollywood and tries to make it in show business with the help of Zsa Zsa Gabor. Mooch goes to Hollywood. Mrs. Polyfax Spy. A widowed New Jersey woman volunteers for spy duty at the CIA. Rosalind Russell, Darren McGavin, and Harold Gould. Next up, They Call It Murder. Jim Hutton, Lloyd Bachner. A small-town district attorney saddled with several major investigations, including a gambler's murder and a possible insurance scam. Drama and mystery. Nicholas and Alexandra. Michael Jaston and Janet Suzman. The inept last monarch of Russia, insensitive to the needs of his people, is overthrown and exiled to Siberia with his family. Period drama, biography, and drama. On Any Sunday, Steve McQueen, David Aldana. Documentary on motorcycle racing featuring stars of the sport, including film star Steve McQueen, a racer in his own right. The Panic in the Needle Park follows the lives of heroin addicts who frequent Needle Park in New York City. Al Pacino, Kitty Wynn, and Alan Vint. God help Bobby and Helen. The Statue. A Nobel Prize winning professor suspects his wife of infidelity when she makes and unveils an 18-foot statue of him with private parts recognizably not his own. David Niven and Verna Lisi. Comedy. Play Miss Me For Me. Clint Eastwood and Jessica Walter. The life of a disc jockey is turned upside down after a romantic encounter with an obsessed fan. Play Miss Me For Me. This is before Fatal Attraction. Something Big. Dean Martin and Brian Keith. A man kidnaps the wife of a cavalry commander in order to exchange her for a Gatling gun that's being sold by a gun runner. Something Big. The Barefoot Executive. Kurt Russell, Joe Flynn, Harry Morgan, and Wally Cox. A mailroom clerk and a chimp team up to pick hit TV shows. The Barefoot Executive. The Hunting Party. Oliver Reed, Candace Bergen, and Gene Hackman. A ruthless rancher and his gang use extremely long-range rifles to kill the man who kidnapped his infidel wife. This movie is the classic Pretty Maids All in a Row. Rock Hudson and Angie Dickinson. Dark comedy. California State Police Captain Sam Searcher investigates a string of teenage girls who are murdered at Oceanfront High School. Pretty Maids All in a Row. I love this movie. Rain for a Dusty Summer. Ernest Borgnine, Humberto Almazan. Spaghetti Western. In Mexico, a mad general is leading his own war against the church. Rain for a Dusty Summer. The Return of Count Yorga. Count Yorga continues to prey on the local community while living by a nearby orphanage. He also intends to take a new wife while feeding his bevy of female vampires. Inn of the Frightened People. Joan Collins. A family plots to take revenge on the man who raped and murdered their daughter. Crime, drama, and thriller. Inn of the Frightened People. Who Says I Can't Ride a Rainbow? Jack Klugman. Barney owns the latest working farm in Manhattan. For various reasons, city officials have decided to close it down. Drama and family. Santo in The Vengeance of the Mummy. Again, the Mexican wrestler. When Mexican wrestler and superhero Santo and his crew disturb the long-lost tomb of a mummified Aztec warrior, they unleash a curse that begins claiming the lives one by one. Santo vs. the Vice Mafia has the masked Mexican wrestler legend battling a dangerous mob that has targeted various Mexican chemicals. Santo vs. the Vice Mafia. Scandalous John. Comedy, drama, family, and romance. Brian Keith and Michelle Carey. A crotchety old rancher owner fights to be able to live his life the way he wants to. Scandalous John. Shaft. Richard Roundtree and Moses Gunn. A crime lord hires Black Private Eye, John Shaft, to find and retrieve his kidnapped daughter. Shaft. Next up we have is Silent Running. In a future where all flora are extinct on Earth, an astronaut is given orders to destroy the last of Earth's plant samples, kept in a greenhouse aboard a spacecraft. Bruce Dern. Silent Running. Smoke. A group of Americans who live together in an old mansion somewhere in Sweden spend their time between working at the local airplane plant and hanging out with their revolutionary friends. Smoke. Drama. Sometimes a Great Notion. Paul Newman, Henry Fonda, Lee Remick. A family of fiercely independent Oregon loggers struggle to keep the family business alive amidst changing times. Straw Dogs. Dustin Hoffman, Susan George. A young American and his English wife come to rural England and face increasingly vicious local harassment. Straw Dogs. Such Good Friends. Diane Cannon and James Coco. While awaiting the outcome of her husband's surgery, Julie Messenger discovers he has been having affairs. Comedy drama. Such Good Friends. Summer Tree. Michael Douglas, Jack Warden, Brenda Vaccaro. Summer Tree, starring Michael Douglas and produced by his father Kirk, examines the Vietnam War and its consequences on the soldiers drafted to fight and the families they leave behind. Support your local gunfighter James Garner and Suzanne Plachette and Jack Elam. A con artist arrives in a mining town controlled by two competing companies. Both companies think he's a famous gunfighter, and they try to hire him to drive the other out of town. They call it murder. Jim Hutton, a small-town district attorney saddled with several major investigations, including a gambler's murder and possible insurance scam. Drama and mystery. The Light at the Edge of the World. Kirk Douglas and Yul Brynner. A ruthless pirate captures the keeper of a lighthouse in the most southern city of Argentina. Adventure, drama, fantasy, and thriller. The Light at the Edge of the World. The Manipulator. Mickey Rooney. An insane Hollywood makeup man kidnaps a woman, keeps her prisoner in his warehouse full of props. The Manipulator. Mickey Rooney is awesome. The Emigrants. Max von Sydow. Small land Sweden, mid-century. A farming family struggle with their rocky, unyielding land and decide to embark on the arduous journey to new hope in America. The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. Jerry Orbach. This is the funny story about two warring mafia groups in New York City. The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight. Comedy and crime. The House That Dripped Blood. An anthology of 4 horror stories revolving around mysterious rental houses in the UK. Drama, fantasy, horror, and mystery. The House That Dripped Blood. The Last Picture Show. Timothy Bottoms and Jeff Bridges. In 1951, a group of high schoolers come of age in a bleak, isolated, atrophied North Texas town that is slowly dying both culturally and economically. The Pursuit of Happiness. Michael Sarazan. A college student goes to prison for vehicular manslaughter and unpaid tickets. The Pursuit of Happiness. Crime and drama. The Todd Killings. Robert Lyons and Richard Thomas. An overgrown adolescent lives off his mother and leads small-town California teens astray. True crime, drama, and thriller. The Todd Killings. The Trackers. Sammy Davis Jr., Ernest Borgnine. When a rancher's daughter is kidnapped by Apaches, he forms a posse and sends for the U.S. Marshal, but an African-American deputy marshal shows up instead. The Trackers. The Young Graduates. Hot undergrad Mindy pulls her married professor out of his Squaresville life and takes him on the road for some groovy adventures in the 70s sex farce. The Young Graduates. The French Connection. Gene Hackman and Roy Scheider. A pair of NYPD detectives in the Narcotics Bureau stumble onto heroin smuggling ring based in Marseille. The French Connection is number 1. The Last Movie. Julie Adams. After a film production wraps in Peru, an American wrangler decides to stay behind to witness the ways that filmmaking affects the locals. Contemporary Western drama. They Might Be Giants. George C. Scott, Joanne Woodward. In a Manhattan psychiatric hospital, a man convinced that he is Sherlock Holmes is treated by a female doctor who happens to be named Watson. Wild Rovers. William Holden, Ryan O'Neal, and Carl Malden. Tired of cow punching for a living, 2 Montana cowboys rob a bank and flee, but their employer's son chases after them. Wild Rovers. Wake in Fight. Donald Pleasance and Gary Bond. After a bad gambling bet, a schoolteacher is marooned in a town full of crazy, drunk, violent men. Wake in Fright. What's the Matter with Helen? Debbie Reynolds, Shelley Winters, and Dennis Weaver. 2 middle-aged women move to Hollywood, California after their sons are convicted of a notorious murder. What's the Matter with Helen? Who is Harry Kellerman, and why is he saying those terrible things about me? Dustin Hoffman, Barbara Harris, Jack Warden. Georgia Salaway, a pop hit love song writer who cannot love himself or others. Dark comedy, drama. Willard, a social misfit, uses his only friends, his pet rat, to exact revenge on his tormentors. Bruce Davison. Willard. Horror. This movie is scary. Zachariah. Two gunfighters separate and experience surreal visions on their journey through the West. Jukebox musical, parody, rock musical, Zachariah. Those were the best films that came out in 1971. What were your favorite films in 1971? For me, it would probably be The French Connection by all, I love Gene Hackman. I love that movie, and it's one of the greatest movies of all time, but definitely one of the best movies in 1971. If there's any movies I may have left out, let me know in the comments below. Again, my list is not all inclusive, but I pretty much cover most of the popular films that came out, the sleepers, the Oscar winners, the horror. Pretty much I try to cover as much as I can of every year. Right? So let me know your thoughts below. If you have any questions, comments, or feedback, leave them below. I'm Tony. Thanks for watching. Those were the best movies of 1971. Stick around for the next video.